Hey, what is going on, guys? So today I want to respond to a video, an I'm no longer vegan video, one of our favorite types of videos on this channel, from somebody named Aggie, your biohacking bestie. I came across this video after seeing that Mike the Vegan issued a response to another video concerning her no longer being vegan, which involved the guy who sells something literally called a lectin shield. I have not watched Mike's video, and so if I repeat any points he made in his video, I apologize. And to be clear, the video I'm responding to is different from the one that Mike responded to. The one I'm responding to is this more original one on her channel, literally titled something like Why I'm No Longer Vegan. So before we start responding, I just want to say that I've already noticed a red flag even before deciding to respond to this video, and that is the name of her channel. Just seeing the word biohacking in her name tells me that her past vegan diet possibly involves something like a nutrient-deprived version of a vegan diet that maybe delved into the more pseudoscientific areas we often see in certain parts of the vegan community. After seeing this, I was like, oh, she probably did some sort of like raw vegan, I don't know, juice cleanse type thing. And then I saw this in her video.
And here I am, juice cleanses, smoothies and whatnot, never chewing. And really, I went deeper into vegan and raw vegan. I was like, I'm gonna eat even cleaner and even more whole foods.
Wow, very surprising. Anyway, let's start from the beginning of her video and I'll respond to what I think is worth responding to. And just a disclaimer, this video is not meant to be taken as medical advice. I would just be expressing my opinion given the information she provided in her video.
I got into being a vegan because I was under the impression, or my goal was to end the suffering of the animals. I just didn't want to participate in the killing of the industry of meat. So I was like, I don't want to eat meat because I don't want that energy. I don't want animals to suffer. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
So we're off to a start that seems to deviate from what we typically see in these ex-vegan videos. She says that she wasn't consuming a vegan diet for health, but it was actually an ethical decision, one to reduce animal suffering. I will say though that her saying, quote, I don't want that energy, or I didn't want that energy, whatever she said, comes across as a bit woo-woo to me and potentially indicative of her having a higher propensity to fall for meme versions of a vegan diet. Doesn't necessarily mean she would, but you know, when I hear things like, oh, I didn't want that energy, I didn't want to consume that energy, this is the kind of language I've heard from many of these like pseudoscientific vegans that end up not being vegan, and you look in their past and you see like they were eating like raw vegan stuff and whatever. Let's continue.
And so started being vegan at 25, moved to LA. It was super easy, you know. There were so many vegan alternatives of butters and cheeses and yogurts. And I was like, wow, this is not bad. But then I was a travel blogger, right? So yeah, I was traveling the world and living this awesome life. But at the moment you leave LA, you realize that there aren't that many vegan options, you know, in super remote parts of Cambodia or Vietnam or Indonesia. You know, Bali is great, but outside of Bali, it's not so common. And so I was in remote Brazil and I didn't eat meat, and it was like, well, we're hunting. We're in a jungle. I still remember we're hunting in a jungle. Our shaman got a chicken that he hunted from like a local village. I know you don't really hunt a chicken. And it was that and rice for 3 days. And I was like, well, I don't eat meat. So that was really challenging to live on rice. And it can be okay every now and then, but if this is becoming your life for 5 or 6 years, because I traveled 300 days a year, it didn't get very healthy, right? So I supplemented and I did my best to really like cancel out all the bad diet when I was back in LA. But I started having some issues.
Just eating rice for 3 days because you're traveling to a place with very little vegan food and being in similar situations for 5 to 6 years for 300 days a year where you're forced to eat an incomplete vegan diet. Yeah, I wonder why she ended up having problems on her vegan diet. Sarcasm aside, it sounds like she was put in situations due to her whole travel vlog lifestyle where being vegan and having a complete vegan diet was very difficult. And I'm sorry, but if you're somebody who claims to be a vegan for animal rights or to reduce animal suffering, and you're knowingly putting yourself in situations where it is going to be hard to commit to a healthy vegan lifestyle, that is irresponsible. Like, yes, traveling is fun and whatnot, but if traveling to a certain area is going to increase the chances of you consuming an incomplete vegan diet, further increasing the chances of you feeling the need to go violate the rights of animals for animal products or whatever because your diet is terrible, that's irresponsible and you shouldn't travel to that area. Like, just think of it like this. If there was a place on earth where all they consumed was dogs and cats and maybe just like rice or something, I highly doubt people would consider it ethically responsible to travel there for an extended period of time and force yourself to consume dogs and cats to get some amount of sustenance, even if you're a travel vlogger. People would just be like, yeah, travel somewhere else that doesn't force you to kill dogs and cats.
But I started having some issues. It started with bloating. Then my skin got really, really bad, as you can see. Then my hair was falling out. And I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm just falling apart. Like, what's going on? Got into biohacking, started doing a lot of these things that other biohackers recommend.
Yeah, so we obviously don't have all the details to determine why exactly she was experiencing those symptoms. But given what she said about rice, it sounds like her profession as a travel vlogger forced her to eat a lot of one food at a time. I'm not going to be making any absolute claims here because, again, we don't really have all the details of what she consumed, but the bloating that she described, I mean, I could totally see that being exacerbated or caused by something like eating just lentils somewhere, only lentils, getting all this fiber because there's no other foods around you and you're traveling in a certain area where there's like nothing else. And for her hair falling out, I mean, yeah, eating just rice and potentially not consuming enough calories could be responsible for that. Who knows what caused this? What seems abundantly clear is that her travel vlogging lifestyle was responsible for her not being able to consume enough calories on a vegan diet, and maybe not even enough calories, but also a more complete diet that gets all the nutrition you need, like micronutrients, etc.
Got into biohacking, started doing a lot of these things that other biohackers recommended. Bulletproof coffee, which I'm going to record a separate video on that and whatnot.
Bulletproof coffee from our favorite ex-raw vegan to anti-vegan influencer, Dave Asprey. Amazing.
And it was working to a degree. I still wasn't getting like the 100% results. And it was pandemic 2020. And, I was watching a lot of vlogs by Dave Asprey. And he basically was asked by, I believe, Mark Hyman, another great doctor, hey, like, what's the missing like link for people to get healthy? And he's like, eating meat. And I felt so annoyed. I was like, fuck no. I refused to believe that. I was like, I can definitely listen to other experts, and really I went deeper into vegan and raw vegan. I was like, I'm gonna eat even cleaner.
So instead of looking at health outcome data, she talks to Dave Asprey, who is a joke, by the way. I made multiple videos on him. I'll have them linked in the description of this video. She even tried to be raw vegan, which probably made her issue with being in situations that forced her to eat not complete diets even worse. Like, think about it. She has a situation where she's traveling to places and her diet is too restrictive to consume a complete diet. So then she decides to go raw vegan and restrict herself even further, only making this problem even worse. Makes sense.
And it's just like I was constantly hungry. I would eat something and I would just like go to the fridge and sit by the fridge, would have something, and then 2 hours later.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go to the fridge and just grab a quick little something instead of make an actual complete meal. Like, I don't know what she means when she says she would have something, but it sounds like she would just grab something quick like a fruit. I'm not really sure. And this could have also been during the raw vegan phase. Don't know. Her story raises a lot of questions. There's some vagary in terms of like the timeline of what happened.
And then my boyfriend at the time was like, hey, let's go fasting for 3 days. I'm like, okay, cool. I couldn't last 4 hours. He went for 3 days. And he basically, I got into why I can't fast. And I was like really dizzy and whatever. And people like, everyone online have said like, well, if you can't fast that long, you don't have metabolic flexibility and you're actually probably deficient in so many minerals and your body's just in starvation mode.
Yeah, so I'm not a medical professional, but I would think that most would agree that doing a 3-day fast while consuming what seems to be a nutrient-deprived version of a vegan diet, whether it's raw vegan or whatever, is probably not a good idea.
And it was another 2 months went by, and I just go to a point where I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just start with liver because that's what Western Price recommended. I'll start with beef liver once a month and just do a little ritual and thank the little animal and whatnot. And then it really gave me so much strength and energy, and I felt so much better. And then I was like, oh, wow, like there's something to me that I wasn't really understanding, but I was still super torn because I was like, well, I don't want to support the, like killing of the animals and whatnot. And then I started really like doing proper research because Dave Asprey actually called me out. I chatted to him and I was like, I really have a hard time. And he's like, well, in reality, there are more animals dying during a vegetarian diet. And I was like, I felt like he personally attacked me. I wanted to punch him in the face. I was like, what do you mean? I'm saving the animals. I'm not killing. He's like, no, like production of avocado kills more animals than, beef production, because with beef, there's only one animal that dies. With avocado, they kill hundreds of foxes and little bunnies and all the little animals that live in the field. And so we started researching, and then it turns out he was right. And that was true for a lot of things about, both the lettuce production, all the vegetables. I was like, what do I do?
So she says she started researching, and all that time was talking to Dave Asprey and hearing him make a bunch of claims. Amazing research. She then said she did more research and found that what he said was true, but she provides literally none of that research. She just makes the claim. Amazing. And Dave Asprey says when you eat a grass-fed cow, you're only causing the death of the cow. And yeah, it is just not that simple. For a more comprehensive tackling of this topic, check out Debug Your Brain's 2 video series on whether or not grass-fed beef causes more death than vegan diets. But in short, people who make make this claim never provide a comparative analysis substantiating the claim. And they never take into account death from cows trampling other animals, death from disease outbreaks on farms, death from hay fires, death from animals who die before slaughter, death from protecting cattle, death from protecting hay, death from eutrophication, death from herbicides applied to pasture, death from zoonotic diseases, and death from harvesting grass for pasture that can't grow in the winter. And by the way, simply looking at this from a perspective of causing less death is to miss the rights-based aspect of veganism in my view. Grass-fed beef still entails the violation of animal rights in the form of breeding, commodifying, exploiting, and murdering cows for food.
Like, I don't want to support that, but I realized that there is no life without death. And I think we in the Western society like to disassociate ourselves with nature and how things are in nature. And we like to think that we aren't causing anyone suffering. But when we realize that living in the Western world means that we're driving a car, we're getting a train, all of this has impact on animals, whether we want it or not.
There is no life without death, and there's incidental human death in industry, so I guess it's totally fine to breed, exploit, and murder humans for food. Was part of her research process learning about the nirvana fallacy?
And I still eat organic, grass-fed, not industrially farmed meat. So I'm basically not supporting that industry that's really harming the animals and only eating grass-fed meat. I realized that as a part of cycle of life, my life will mean death of another animal, whether I want it or not, whether I do it consciously or subconsciously, whether I'm eating lettuce or whether I'm having avocado. And there's like big humility in that, at least to me, and then just realizing like, wow, like it is an honor to be alive thanks to all of these animals. And I treat my life very differently. Now, always say a little prayer before every single meal. Like, thank you so much for this food.
Yeah, so before I decided to consume grass-fed dogs who were given a great life up until their great life was literally taken from them at a fraction of their lifespan, I decided to just say a nice little prayer. How sweet. All right, guys. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you support my work and want to get early access to it, you can click the link in the pinned comment and support me on Patreon. And if you don't know, I do have a book going over most, if not all, of the anti-vegan arguments you're going to hear online. If you want to get that as well, that'll be linked in the pinned comment. Lastly, there are 2 links below for vegan protein powder and vegan merch, both of which, if you purchase, will help support the channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude.
Fuck off. I don't want anything to do with you. Don't ever speak to me again. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude,